everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 21 of Trigun. And yeah, last time we went up to a ship in the sky, a remainder ship that was left over, and things just seemed like they were going to be great. Vash was just getting a new arm. Wolfwood came along, wasn't really received well by the people there. And then it turns out that no, Legato and his minion, part of the gung-ho gang, shows up and starts killing everybody on the ship, which is problematic. And so then Vash supposedly saves the day, but it's not done yet. We still have to deal with Leonov, and we find out that Wolfwood is Chapel, which we've been suspecting for quite some time now. So getting confirmation that Wolfwood is Chapel feels appropriate, right? Especially as we're going into the last 6 episodes of the series, you know, before we get to Trigun Stampede, and the movie, of course. We have the movie to get through as well. But I forget about the movie. I did a video talking about scheduling, and I forgot to mention the movie. I was like, oh, we're just going to go from Trigun to Trigun Stampede. No, we do have a movie in between. And my brother who likes Trigun, he was like, oh, you got to watch the movie. I was like, okay. So I definitely need to put that in the schedule that we have the movie to get through as well before we talk about Trigun Stampede. And then eventually we'll be able to talk about the manga as well. So as far as comments go, I did have a couple that I wanted to bring up. K.A. mentioned that the voice actor for Knives also played in the 1994-1995 radio drama of Banana Fish, played Ash Lynx. And I was like, wow, really? Knives voice actor played Ash Lynx. Although it's not too much of a jump, I suppose. It's kind of cool that from back in the 1990s, this voice actor played Ash and then goes into Knives, which is just like a more dark, maniacal version of Ash, I guess. But I thought that was really good. And then Lemony Nitsu commented about the name Eric's, being like, do we think that Eric's possibly could have been the name of Rim's lover that she told Vash about? And so Vash was using that name as kind of a memoriam to Rim. I don't know. I kind of like that. I think that would be kind of a nice way. There's really no other way I can explain Eric's. We talked about in the last couple episodes. It doesn't really have any other significant meaning that I could find. So if it was the name of Rim's lover that died back on Earth, that would seem to fit very well. So I could totally see that. I'm like, I kind of like that explanation. Seems like it's a good one. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what all happens this episode. Again, it's like part 2 on the ship, so I want to see like how are we defeating Leonov? Is it going to lead us to Legato? I feel like we have to face Legato before we can face Knives. So how is that going to work? We have 6 episodes, so it is a very doable thing to do to get done in that period of time. But what do we do about that? So yeah. And then as far as anything else goes, I just want to give a big shout out over to Patreon, to our philanthropy tier, for supporting me and my reactions. So these wonderful people go above and beyond each month to help support me in buying the anime, the manga, etc., to be able to do the reactions for this channel. So thank you guys so much. A special shout out not only to Patreon and YouTube subscribers, but to the people on the philanthropy tier. Thank you so much to Edgar, to Dana, to Alex Cornejo, to Be Happy, to Kiri, to Shimoyama, to Nameless Monster, to Argent, to Matthew Palfinier, as well as Tyrone, Anime Annie, Eric Sunspots, Translucent Men, Anna Legatus Goob, and the newest member of the philanthropy tier, Ashley Got No Bitches. I have a feeling I'm gonna love saying that name. So thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. All of my love. I'm very curious, like I said, to know what's going to happen this episode. We're at the 6th episode march. We get 6 episodes. We get 26 total for this series, which is a little bit different than the 24 I'm used to. So around this time, I would feel like we're going into the final act. But because we have those extra 2 episodes, we still have quite a bit we could do. So that's exciting. So I'm curious to see what we're going to get, y'all. But I hope y'all are excited as well. But get this straightened up here. We're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right in and see what we get with Trigun episode 21. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this, y'all. This episode was freaking sad. Really sad. I was not expecting it to get as harsh as it did, and we still have 5 episodes to go. Oh, we have 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. Yeah, 5 episodes left. Poor Brad. I felt so sorry for Brad. I was sure he was going to make it through and him and Jessica were going to have this great life together, but no, she was being used by Leonoff the entire time. It was a puppet and it was going to lure Vash. It was one of those like last resort puppets, and that if all else failed, he would get close with Jessica's puppet and then kill him. Oh my God. So there was quite a lot revealed in this episode without being revealed. So I was like, oh, they just made no big deal. No big deal. There's just these aliens powering the plants. No big deal. These just angelic forces powering the plants. I'm not surprised by that, because from the moment that Vash was like Doctor Who, using like when he was absorbing the energy from the plant, I was like, okay, the energy from the light bulbs, the energy from the plant is connected to Vash because he's able to interact with it, right? And he's been calling the computer system and the plants like brothers and sisters. He's been calling them like friends. He's been treating them like they're things, like people. And so it's made sense. Like for a while I've been like, okay, well, Vash is clearly connected to the power associated with the plants. And whatever that power is, either Vash feeds off of it or he's connected to it. Or in this case, it's literally their brethren that are the plants, right? That adds a whole nother dimension to it, because it's like, okay, well, Knives being mad at humanity for possibly using his brethren to power their own devices, and him calling them vermin that don't deserve to have the power that his kind have bestowed upon them. It makes a lot more sense why Knives would have issue with humanity, because you're using our species to power your pathetic selves. So I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. But the idea that Vash is like, and that conversation that Vash had where he's like, are you ever going to consume us? To Rim, and Rim's like, oh no, that makes more sense now and has like a whole nother layer to it, because it's like, okay, him saying, are you going to be the spiders and we're the moths? It was like, oh well, no, but now that we know that his kind powers the plants, it's like, well, he was like, well, are you ever going to use us like others have been used, Rim? And Rim's like, oh no, but Knives didn't seem to believe that all that much. That's so fascinating. That adds a lot to it, right? The idea that the plants, that the light bulbs are like little power capsules that incorporate them. Now, the question is, the angel, I'm just going to call them angels. They're aliens. They're whatever Vash and Knives are. Rim called them angels, so I'm just going to call them angels. The angel that was inside the plant of the city didn't seem like it was in a bad state. It didn't seem like they were unhappy to be there. They seemed happy to see Vash. It didn't seem like they were unhappy. And then it seemed like once they were burst out of the light bulb, they weren't able to sustain themselves. They were just gone. Now, of course, the gauntlet, he just destroyed the light bulb. So did he kill the angel inside the light bulb, and that's why we don't see them afterwards? Possibly. And the fact that Knives is being healed inside a light bulb makes me think that the light bulbs are a way of sustaining them and keeping them, like, renew their energy, etc. So Vash, we can assume, when Vash fired the gun at Knives in July, in the city of July, he's the one that injured Knives. Now, at this point, what we don't know is, does Legato realize that Knives incited that entire incident? Knives basically is the one that caused Vash to have the reaction. So the fact that Knives was impacted by it is kind of Knives' own fault, right? But does Legato know that? Does Legato know the entire story, or is he just piecing together what Knives has told him? Or does he not even know what Knives has told him? He's just assumed that since Vash, attacked the city, attacked in quotation marks, that it's his fault and he's trying to get back at him for... I want to know what... And I know we're going to find out, so I don't want anybody to tell me in the comments, but I'm so curious to know what Legato and Knives' relationship is, because I'll be honest, there was a hot second that I was thinking in the back of my head, I was like, is Legato Knives? Like, in disguise? I thought about that for a little bit, and I didn't want to say it in the discussion, because I was like, I don't know, I feel like I need to know a little bit more. But I was like, just the fact of Legato, like, trying to make Vash suffer like he is, I was like, okay, well, is Legato maybe Knives in disguise and he's got a wig on? But his eyes didn't match, so I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. But is he wearing contacts? I wouldn't put anything past this world, right? Because it just seems like it just reveals its hand whenever. But it's good to know Legato and Knives are different. They're two separate people. My big question now is, what is Legato's relationship to Knives? Are they lovers? Are they father and son? Is Legato one of the angels as well that's fallen? Like, did Knives rescue Legato from one of the light bulbs and like broke him out and was like, hello, fellow brethren, come with me? Or is Legato an enhanced human that has fallen in love with Knives? Mid-Valley's third wheeling over here, being like, hey, I thought we had something. I was over here shipping Mid-Valley and Legato hardcore, and now I'm like, oh wait, is Legato and Knives a thing? And that makes it quite awkward with Mid-Valley standing right there playing his smooth saxophone. I just love that Mid-Valley follows Legato wherever he goes and plays the saxophone like as just, he's just playing it. And he doesn't, here's the thing, Mid-Valley doesn't seem very troubled by the fact that Knives is right in front of us. So Mid-Valley is definitely the second in command. I'm like, is he okay with all this? Are him and Legato just platonic friends? Is Knives just assumed to be out of the picture? Are they gonna make an OT3? I don't know. Is Mid-Valley the midway man between Knives and Legato? I don't know how these relationships work, so I can't attune to them. But we have all these light bulbs. So wherever Legato is hiding out is inside of a ship. We know it's inside of a ship or inside of a plant. There's all these light bulbs. They all look a little bit different than the light bulbs we've seen so far. So are they harvesting? Are they creating more? Is Knives like multiplying or expanding? I don't know how the reproduction of Vash's species works. So are there a limited number of angels and that's all we have? Is Knives like reproducing into all these little bulbs to make little versions of him? I don't know. I'm hoping we find out answers. And he says, I'm aware of that. Let me teach him to stay alive is true suffering. Again, Legato is very nihilistic. Legato does not seem to think that life is worth living, and he despises the fact that Vash is a big pacifist who believes that life is worth living, and he has decided that he's going to make Vash's life hell for whatever reason. I'm very curious about Legato's past. I'm curious. I'm assuming by the end of these last 5 episodes, we'll know more about Legato. If not, maybe Stampede or the manga or the movie will tell us. I don't know. But I'm very curious how that's going to go. And he's like, for all eternity, he will pay. And we have this big, like, spider web and this big light bulb in the middle. For all eternity, he will pay for the grievous sin of injuring you. Now, that does make it seem like, it makes that seem like Legato is either Knives' son, and he's like, Daddy, he injured you, Daddy, I'm gonna get revenge. But it also seems more like Legato is Knives' lover, or like admirer, or like worships Knives, and he's like, you injured my god, I can't have this, and like is gonna make Vash suffer for it. I'm curious to know more. But I'm like, did they just screwed Knives in like a light bulb. They just screwed him into the light bulb. Oh my god, they did. So it's like his upper torso is like literally screwed into the light bulb, and it's like healing him. What the fudge? What? Because he's like, yeah, there he is, and it's like his upper. We conveniently like got his torso in there before you saw any genitalia. Any genitalia is not present, but he got them V hips. Old Knives does. You ain't seeing no dicks on display here, but you're gonna see that V line. It gets dangerously close where he is literally screwed into that light bulb. Show, why are you doing this? He will suffer unceasing despair and anguish, wounds which will never be healed. Like, Legato is prostrating himself at how much he's going to make Vash suffer for injuring his deity. And we see, and Knives, of course, is there smirking about that. A wonderful show is about to begin. Yeah, Legato, I'm just getting lover vibes from Legato, and I feel kind of bad for Mid-Valley, because I feel like Mid-Valley was trying to, like, get with his man, and now there's this ancient deity that's in the way. It's a great time. A great time. And so what's interesting is Legato is constantly grabbing his arm. Like, I'm very curious what the heck that's about. He's like, in which you are the star, Vash the Stampede, this great show that's about to go down. He's just bound and determined to make Vash suffer for hurting Knives. I'm like, but Knives is the one that orchestrated it and kind of asked for it, but whatever. So So we took care of the two. We took care of the two. Basically all three of the Gung Ho gang. Vash still does not know about Wolfwood being chapel. That part has been conveniently silenced for the moment. Although Wolfwood takes great umption with the fact that they're targeting Vash, because I think Wolfwood has come to like Vash, and he's just like, "What the heck are we doing? Why are you guys being ridiculous?" And so he's taking it personally as a mission to silence the Gung Ho gang, which I could see Wolfwood wanting to do that, because at this point, Vash has suffered a lot. And if Vash finds out that Wolfwood was part of the gang that's causing all this, he's going to feel betrayed by Wolfwood. And I'm sure that's going to happen. I'm sure that they're going to come out and be like, "Oh, Wolfwood was part of the group." And Wolfwood's going to be like, "Yeah, I was, but I'm not now." And so I feel like there's going to be some drama there. But I'm hoping Wolfwood, I feel like Vash by the end of it is going to be okay with Wolfwood, but I feel like they're going to make a big point of just being like, yeah, Wolfwood was part of this gang, and Vash is going to feel betrayed, but then Nakama may come through and save them in the end. I don't know. But Wolfwood at this point is kind of like, he does not want to get his true identity out there. He doesn't want Vash to know. He's trying to clean up all the loose ends. And then, but they're eventually going to have to face Legato. And Legato's going to say something. You know he is, right? You know he is. I like that Wolfwood's like, "I'm doing things my way." He's like, "I'm going to do it my way, so just get out of my way here." And so he's like, "If you try pulling the same stunt as before, you're going to get killed." I like that he just has the cross over the top of his shoulder, and it's just this massive gun and bazooka and whatever. Again, it's interesting. He notes that these people, he says, these are not your typical humans. So Wolfwood and the others are enhanced somehow. Now, how did Knives give them some of his power, and that's how they're enhanced? I don't know. Did he give Legato some of his power and Legato passed it on to the others? I feel like it's either one of two ways. Either Knives gave them all some of his power somehow, or Knives gave Legato his power and Legato spread it out to the others. That seems more likely, because I feel like Legato's like, "I'm the one that's in touch with Knives. It's me and Knives." He has kind of like a Hua Chong vibe to him from Heaven Official's Blessing a little bit, being like, "Only I can be next to Knives." And Mid-Valley's just there offering background music. But I feel like Legato wants to take the claim of being the closest to Knives, and then he disperses that power to everybody else, right? But it seems like there clearly is a price to be paid. With Leonov, he's just basically a puppet master. With the 9 lives, Gray the 9 lives, was he even human, or was he a robot? Had he sacrificed his humanity to gain the 9 lives? And Wolfwood's like, "Well, that makes sense." And then the Gauntlet, it seems like he, what did he sacrifice to get this body? He talks about suffering, and he's like, "I didn't go through all this suffering just to have Vash win at the end of the day." So he clearly there clearly has been a sacrifice to get their powers. We just don't know the full extent of how the Gung Ho gang works and what all is involved with it. But it does seem as if they've had to make sacrifices to get where they are. But yeah, this episode went by so fast. And so Jessica went to where the doctor was. Now, the Jessica droid did. So what's interesting here is that the puppet itself could have killed everybody in the room, but didn't. It was waiting to be convincing to get Vash at the very end. So, but I feel like the puppet master was already controlling all the other puppets at the time. So she was kind of just like a fail safe. If all else fails, then I'll go to her. But first I'm going to use these puppets. So I didn't know if the new arm would have a gun in it. It does. It's enhanced. So, and it's got a kickback. And so Vash is like, "Oh crap." And I like that he's trying to aim for the last puppet, but he's afraid of hitting the guy. And that's when Brad comes in. And Brad's like, "We got to do something." So that's kind of one of the messages of this episode is just being pacifist isn't enough. Just sitting there not doing anything. You have to do something with that pacifism, whether it's speaking out, which is what Brad does. He speaks out and gets everybody back on board with Vash, being like, "We all knew this was going to happen eventually. We were living in this bubble. It was going to pop. Why are we scapegoating Vash when we knew, when he actually ended up saving a lot of us? We all would have died." I'm like, and that's kind of true. Yes, yes, Vash being there was the catalyst to them getting hurt. But at the end of the day, like, Legato and them were watching the city from the start. So if they really wanted to mess up the plant, they could have done it all along. They were just using them to lure Vash in. So it's not Vash's fault, even though technically he is the catalyst of it. And Brad telling them all that is like him taking a stand and using his voice to do something, which I really like. I like the cat makes 2 cameos in this. The cat makes the cameo on the ship and with Meryl and Millie. How the ship did not just decimate and create this giant crater, we'll never know. I'm accepting it. I'm totally fine with it. I'm glad that it didn't happen, but I was like, in any other scenario, the ship crashing would have just destroyed the whole planet. But we'll let logic take a sidestep here because of the plant, whatever. The moment you involve like supernatural forces and the plant and everything, it's like you kind of have to take a step back and go, it's fine. Like the physics don't necessarily matter at this point. It's more symbolic than anything. And so the idea of Wolfwood talking to the Nine Lives saying, do you understand what I'm saying? Indicates that I feel like Wolfwood believes that some of these gung-ho gang members have been altered and like messed with to the point where they're not human anymore. They don't understand human thought. And so that's an interesting thing going into this of Wolfwood being like, I'm not going to show you any mercy. And he's like, okay. And I like that he has the short range and long range capabilities of his cross gun, right? And so it didn't dawn on me until the very end, but there were 2 plants on the ship keeping it afloat, a first plant and a second plant. And Wolfwood goes to one, it gets destroyed, and then Vash and them get to the other, and it's destroyed too. Which is interesting. If each ship had 2 plants, that means they each had 2 angels on them powering them. Just so happens we find the twins, Vash and Knives, on the ship connected together. So were they... The interesting question is, were Vash and Knives eventually going to become 2 engines of the ship? Because they're together in pairs. Were they eventually going to become 2 engines? That is the question, right? Were the humans eventually going to use Vash and Knives? I don't know. Rim didn't seem like that was going to be the case, but I'm sure Knives was thinking that was eventually what was going to happen. And somehow throughout this episode, the humor that they use of it was like Inspector Gadget, where Vash just like shoots the hole in the floor and he keeps falling 6 stories. It was very Inspector Gadget-y humor, which, you know, the gun arm kind of feels Inspector Gadget as well. I'm all for it. I like it. I think it's funny. But God, it's just like this series, it gives you emotional whiplash because at one point you're laughing at Vash like shooting a hole through the floor and falling 6 stories. And then the very next second he reaches the bottom and sees all of the people he knows on the ship just dead in front of him. And it's like, it just sucks the air out of the room. You're like, oh, never mind. We're not laughing now. There are dead people here. And I feel so bad for Vash because he's so empathetic and so kind-hearted. And he feels for all these victims. And you can tell he feels responsibility. And everybody's just so awful about it when he gets off the ship and they start blaming him. Like, Vash has been through enough. He's tried to save you. He's sad that his friends have died. Like, it's so sad. And that's when the gauntlet shows up. He shows up like a damn Beyblade here being like, this happened because you're here, remember? I'm the 3rd gung-ho gung. Hoppered the gauntlet. Now, Mid-Valley's either the 1st or 2nd. Right? Mid-Valley's either the 1st or 2nd. He's one of the strongest ones. He has to be because he's Legato's right-hand man, right? If Legato is the 1st gung-ho gung, then Mid-Valley is the 2nd. And that makes Hoppered the 3rd, right? Which, his body looks so augmented. It looks so messed up that, yeah, he's basically been through all of this stuff to, like, alter his body. The fact that Mid-Valley looks like a normal guy, like Wolfwood, is, to me, that makes me feel like he's going to be insanely powerful. That saxophone is not going to be for any joke. I don't know what Mid-Valley's ability is going to be, but I'm not looking forward to it. And then Legato looks normal too, right? He says, compared to what you did on July and August, this is a tiptoe through the tulips. But I'm like, this is the part that was weird. He says, you shouldn't be on this planet. This is where I'm very interested in seeing how the wires are going to be crossed or have been crossed, because Knives' whole deal Knives is like, I just want a planet of me and you. I don't want anybody else here. I just want this to be me and you. But Hopper is like, you shouldn't be here. We need to get rid of you. So there is a disconnect between what Knives wants and what Legato thinks Knives wants. Because as far as we know for Legato, Legato is trying to kill Vash, and Legato's trying to kill Vash and make it to where it's just Knives and them. But we know from Knives that Knives doesn't care about anybody else but him and Vash. So my theory is that Knives knows that Legato is not going to be able to kill Vash. Knives knows this. Knives is like, oh, you can't kill my brother. Nope, it's not going to happen. He's going to come here. But Knives is okay with this because he knows, one, they're not going to be able to kill my brother Vash. However, in the process of them fighting Vash, Vash is going to have to destroy them, and that's going to make Vash feel awful, and Knives seems okay with that. Like, Knives seems like he wants to make Vash suffer, but it's like this yandere toxic like thing where Knives wants Vash to suffer, and then at the end of the day be like, it's just you and me, brother. It's like, it's the creepiest thing, right? The creepiest thing. You know what? We've been talking about Heaven Official's Blessing. It gives me very, like, Knives and Vash give me Bai Wu Shang, Shilian vibes so much. I'm like, what is happening? If you don't know those characters, you go watch Heaven Official's Blessing. It's amazing. The book is amazing, but it's giving me all those vibes. I'm like, But I'm very curious to know, like, is it going to get to the point where Legato realizes what Knives' real intentions are, and how will he react to it, or will he never know? Will Vash end up having to kill Legato, and Legato never understands what Knives' true intentions were? That's the question, right? That's the question. I felt for Wolfwood getting shot in the leg. I guess that doesn't end up becoming a thing. I guess that ends up becoming not a thing. I guess his leg is okay, and he ends up, like, wrapping it up. Glad. I got a little bit scared when Wolfwood got shot. I'm like, I don't like that the show is showing Wolfwood getting injured, because so far Wolfwood's been pretty invulnerable. I don't like where this is headed. I'm like, I don't want Wolfwood to die. And so I'm like, please show, don't let that happen. I was like, no, I'm a little bit worried. And so then we cut back to Hopper, who talks about the idea of them reaching an impasse where the idea, what was the word they said? It was the idea of the spear and the sword, the spear contradict, is when the spear and the shield face one another and then they break because they can't, one can't be stronger than the other. It's a contradiction, right? And so he's like, my shield is invincible. You can't repel any attacks. And he's like, nothing can contradict Gutterer. And he talks about how I only have been implanted with these three words in my vocabulary: attack, trample, and destroy. They describe what you've been doing all this time, Vash the Stampede. And Vash is like, I've been doing more than just attack, trampling, and destroying, sir. Why does nobody get that, right? I feel so bad for Vash, because he's like, I've been doing more than just this. And then we go back to Wolfwood, who gets shot in the leg, and we reveal that Gray is just this robot, right? But we get to Plant 2, and he's like, keep making those faces of despair. And then that's when Hopper says, are you telling me I had all this done to me so I could listen to nonsense? So yeah, so the idea, I believe, is that all the gung-ho game have all been augmented. They've been given this special power from either Legato or Knives to go out and do whatever Legato has told them to do. And they're like, did I have all this junk done to me so I could listen to your nonsense? It's pretty terrifying that these humans have been augmented so that they could basically destroy Vash. It's kind of scary, right? Not good. And then Vash is like, I promised Rim I have to keep moving. And so him using, like, them going up to the plant. And then, yeah, Wolfwood, the first plant gets destroyed by Gray firing right at the plant there, and that's what caused them to go downwards. And the typhoon stops just as the ship starts to come down. I had to laugh because the cat being like, meow. I was like, no, I don't want the cat to get destroyed. And I was afraid that the whole ship was going to, like, kill Meryl and Millie, but we can't have them die yet. And that's when Brad says that everything is doomed. The ship's going to go down. And Vash is like, are you giving up now? We haven't tried everything yet. Let's keep trying and see what we can do. which is so sweet. I'm like, Vash is like, we can't give up yet. There's still hope. And it's going to hurt so much more later when Brad, like, doesn't give up hope and it gets him killed. Ugh. So then Vash goes up and says, hey, little sister, just a little longer. So that's the question, little sister. Like, I'm so curious because Vash, like, we see the angels inside the plant because he's sitting there, like, looking at her, like, almost like he's trying to heal the crack, like he's trying to mend it, right? And so then we see beings outside of time that exist outside of time. So that is the question. Like, is she even there inside the light bulb? Is it like there's like this weird Neon Genesis? This whole scene with the egg, like the eyes opening up and they're aliens. It feels very Neon Genesis. Not gonna lie, it feels very like these aliens with the angel wings and the big eye there. And he's like, "What is that?" And then the plant like is exploding with power, right? And there's that rainbow factor to it, like there was back at the other plant at the beginning of the series, right? Where the power is spiking with the plants. We're gonna make it. Okay. And then Vash seeing the angel, and the angel reaching out with the like clawed hands. He's like, good, that's the way. And I mean, it looks female. It has boobs, but it looks very much like it's just sitting there. And he's like, the beings who live outside of time, like they're immortal. And that's when, so now the question is, the angel doesn't look like Vash or Knives. It looks very alien. It has these alien eyes. It has a humanoid figure, but it looks like kind of elvish and stuff. The question is, did Vash and Knives imprint on humanity? And so they started taking on human features because they were around Rim and the others. And originally, is Vash kind of like this alien and actually looks like this alien, but it's taken on this camouflage of looking like a human? I don't know. Or did it imprint on humanity and start looking like them? This episode gives us answers of saying like the plants are being powered by the same species, we think, as Vash and Knives, but they have like angel wings and they look kind of very alien, they're humanoid, whereas Vash and Knives look very much like humans. So that's the question, right? Like, what is the deal? And the show doesn't quite give us answers, so we've got to wait and find out, which is fun. But yeah, and then the plant gets destroyed. We're assuming the angel gets destroyed too. And then Wolfwood goes back to saying, I told these people they were eventually going to have to live on this planet. Like it or not, the time will come where you have to live on the sand planet. He's like, it went down just the way they wrote the script. Wolfwood's like, I just didn't intend to be the catalyst of it. I'm like, but the thing of it is, Wolfwood feels guilty and he thinks that he's the one that triggered all this. I'm like, I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think the fact that Wolfwood and Vash came together is inconsequential. It was going to happen eventually. They were just biding their time until they could lure Vash and Wolfwood there to try to get them in a contained environment to get rid of them. But I feel bad that Wolfwood's blaming himself because you know that Vash blames himself. So both these guys just need to talk it out. Have Meryl and Millie there to like slap some sense into them and make them realize this was going to happen eventually. It was only a matter of time. It just sucks. And that's when Wolfwood finds Jessica being tied up. And she had her clothes and stuff taken away. Don't tell me that the girl we saved was a puppet. And it sucks because Brad was like trying to defend Vash when they were all scapegoating him and being like, oh, don't listen to this like fear. Like it was going to happen eventually. We should work together and we can live on this ball of sand. And the old man's like, that's right. And then Jessica comes in the picture. And the moment she was like so chipper, I'm like, oh, no. That should have been an indication that she was. And they're just sitting there smiling like, oh, look, everything's great. Jessica's back. Brad's going to get to have this existence with her. It's all good. And then she turns into the puppet and pulls out the gun. And then he's like, needle noggin. That's not who you think it is. And then Brad ends up like jumping in front of him and getting shot. Oh, it's awful. And the puppet says, I've failed. And that's when Wolfwood's like, you depraved lunatic, and immediately finds where he is and like fires at him. I'm sure in the manga there's probably more in that instance. And then we see Wolfwood says, this is killing me. And then we see the puppet like collapse that was talking to Legato. Mm-hmm. So Wolfwood, poor Wolfwood, saying this is killing me. Yeah, I'm nervous for Wolfwood now. I am. There's red flags going off. Wolfwood feeling guilty about what's going on. Wolfwood getting shot and showing that he's not invulnerable. Wolfwood saying this is killing me, like trying to like get rid of the other gang members before his identity is revealed to Vash, and to try to prevent Vash from suffering anymore. So far the people that have been trying to save Vash and keep him safe have died. I don't like where this is headed, and I'm like, Sho, don't you dare kill Wolfwood off. No, we need Wolfwood to ride off into the sunset together with Vash. If Legato or Knives kills Wolfwood, I'm gonna be like eternally sad. I'm gonna be really sad. I'm not gonna be happy. Nope, not at all. And I don't want any spoilers. I want to live in this bliss of they're gonna be okay. He's gonna make it out with Millie and Meryl and Vash together. I don't like where that's headed. No. So, are you crying, Vash the Stampede? It's a wonderful thing. He keeps looking down his hand. I want to know what the deal with Legato and his hand is. Right? But he clearly is telepathic and can sense that Vash is crying about Brad dying. Which, it's so heartbreaking. It's so sad. Because Vash, like, he says, the beings who live outside of time. And then it's like, my hands grew this big in 13 years. But you look exactly the same. And I don't know if that coat is supposed to be beige or if it's supposed to be red, but you haven't changed a bit. You see, it's like time doesn't affect you. Damn. And then he dies. Oh, it's so sad. And Meryl and Millie showing up right as he's dying. And meanwhile, we go back to Wolfwood, who's still in the same space. He just lit a cigarette for himself. He's like, eternal pain, huh? Like, that's all Vash is supposed to. Vash is the idea is that Legato is going to make him suffer eternal pain. And Wolfwood's like, what do we do with this? I feel like Wolfwood feels bad for Vash because he's like, he's gotten to know Vash. The plan seems to have been from the start that we're gonna make Vash suffer eternal pain for hurting Knives. And Wolfwood knows that. But now that he's gotten to know Vash and realizes what his MO is and has related to Vash, he's like, oh, I don't want this guy to suffer anymore. And he gets why he's suffering, and he gets why Legato's targeting him, but Wolfwood's like, I don't want that to happen to him anymore. And it's like the most tragic thing ever. Why? I hate it. I hate it, y'all. I hate it. I hate it. So, what can we do, though? What can we do? So, yeah, I'm not looking forward to the next several episodes because I feel like at this point, Legato is showing his hand and showing that he really has no qualms with making Vash suffer. He really has no qualms. And Legato is terrifying because now we know. Legato is terrifying because he has a purpose. And that purpose is to serve Knives and make Vash suffer for hurting him. And Knives seems totally fine with this because it's no skin off his back. He knows that Vash is probably not going to be harmed in the long run, but everybody else around him getting harmed, Knives doesn't care. That's been his goal all along, has been to get rid of them anyway. So why would he care? And then Wolfwood is scary because he seems to be understanding what Vash is going through and doesn't like it. But I'm like, are you going to sacrifice yourself to save Vash too? Makes me nervous about what's to come, y'all. Makes me nervous about what's to come. So, I don't know, y'all, but I'm pretty nervous about everything. But we'll find out next episode. Maybe it'll be sunshine and rainbows. Who knows? I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion, but Next episode. With this series, it's going by so quickly and we're getting answers, but there's still mystery, which I'm really excited about. And I'm hoping that as we go these next 5 episodes, I don't want a giant exposition dump at the end, but I hope we get more as we go with what's going on with the story. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I'll be back very soon with more Trigun.